started now, and I'm sure there'll be a few more coming in as we go, but we'll get the introductions done and start from there. Move to the first slide for me, George. All right, this is a discussion series. So cubesys have been running discussion series for about a year now, and we always encourage that you talk to us and ask questions, but please do note that the session is recorded. Please ask some questions all along the way. We'll do our best to answer them, but we have got some subjects that we'll go over and go and jump into a bit of detail. We've got some great experts on hand, so it's an awesome opportunity for you to get those questions across. And as I just mentioned, we've recorded the session, so we always make the video available afterwards. So if you want to share with colleagues or go over some of the content again, it's always available there. You'll find also about a dozen or so other sessions in our discussion series up on our website, right? And Asta and the marketing team will make sure that comes out to you all afterwards. Got some fantastic speakers here today. I'm very pleased to have Andrew with us, but we've also got our in-house VDI expert and cloud expert, George. So he's often involved in a lot of our discussion series and brings along a lot of awesome content and context from our clients. But Andrew, before we go further, would you like to quickly introduce yourself and what your role is at Microsoft?
Yeah, so I'm part of the global modern work team here in Australia. I cover Australia and New Zealand, and part of the worldwide Windows 365 team, really finding, working with our customers on what's next beyond Microsoft 365 and E5, and it's things like Windows 365, future Copilot, stuff like that. So that's my team's role.
Awesome. Thanks for being here today, mate. Really good. And I know, George, you've got a short demo for us later on, so you always bring some of the technical expertise as well.
Yeah, I do. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but yeah.
Awesome. Which is probably a good idea for me just to run over the sort of agenda quickly for you all, guys. We're going to start off with why Windows 365? Why did Microsoft build it, right? And give some context to the solution and what it brings to market and why it's a bit different. We'll then discuss some of the use cases we're seeing in the market and how it's impacting the cloud VDI space and challenging some of those traditional on-prem solutions and where it fits into the piece. Next, we'll show you that demo piece and just show you how quick and easy it is to set up. So it's one of the huge differentiators with Windows 365 is the ease of use and ease of management. And after that demo, we'll go into a bit more detail on that management and how it's impacting organizational teams and where it sits within those teams, right? You might be surprised at some of the sort of ease of use and how it changes the dynamics between your internal teams and who needs to get involved. And then we'll talk about some of those operational benefits as well that are assigned to that or related to that. And we'll finish off with what's the future of Windows 365. So there's some new features coming that we'll talk about and make sure you're across and see if we can eke out any surprises from Andrew, right, without him getting into trouble. So that's the agenda. But to warm us up, why don't we just start with a very short video of what Windows 365 is and warm ourselves up.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Thanks, George.
It's not a demo if it doesn't work.
There we go, man. It's good. Just allowed a few more people to join, which is great, and warmed us up to what a cloud PC might be. Just a little quote from Satya there to see the impact that cloud VDI is having on the whole market, and that's Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 have really impacted what we've been doing, and how we've seen that change from those on-prem rather monolithic and static capabilities of VDI to the very dynamic world of the cloud elasticity that Azure platform allows us to have when it comes to providing virtual desktops, right? And we've seen that through AVD, but now we've got Windows 365 as a piece that we bring to the party. And it's based on Azure and a lot of the same technology. And I know that the teams inside of Microsoft have actually come together as they build a future roadmap, but it is fundamentally different as well. And we'll get Andrew to start maybe introduce us of why did Microsoft buy or build Windows 365 when they already had AVD, and what were they trying to do with the market, Andrew? What's the input there?
Well, it's really interesting. The team that built Windows 365 actually were part of the original team that brought Azure Remote App to market, for those like me at 400 years old and remember that, and then the original WVD. In large part, it was driven by customer feedback. They loved the concept of Microsoft delivering a sort of this virtual Windows experience, but did not want to either invest in or keep up-to-date VDI skills. So to me, when we look across our business, yes, we've had great uptake in AVD, but there's a lot of either people don't get past the first MVP of AVD, or they just struggle to keep current and keep it going. So from that, we see this like a moment in time with the move 13 years ago from Exchange to Exchange Online, when we might have been talking to customers around that, stop building Exchange servers, go to the cloud. So our whole vision around Windows 365 is, we'll still to invest in AVD, and as you mentioned, the teams are now one, but really push this idea of a cloud PC. And so the first thing is, we see this as a moment in time, that move from Exchange to Exchange Online. Second thing is, that allows us to remove a ton of complexity from customers. You can spin up cloud PCs without even needing an Azure account. You just need to bring your PC management skills. And then the third thing is, this concept of a cloud PC, think of it like a PC. It just happens to run in our data center. But the way you manage it, your applications, your settings, everything, just come down to it like a PC. It just happens not to exist. So we sort of, in Microsoft, think of it a bit like the anti-VDI VDI solution. Because really, for us, it's not so much another VDI solution. It's actually the future of Windows itself. You'll see some stuff we're doing, and we'll talk about some of that. There's really redefining the boundaries between, at the moment, Windows experience is defined by the boundary of how much horsepower RAM and hard disk you got in one of these. We want to break that down and do to the Windows experience what we're doing with Xbox X Cloud to the gaming experience, and moving away from having to have a sort of large monolithic gaming device in your living room. If you still want, we still want people to buy Xbox Series X or Xbox S, if you still want to do that, that's brilliant. But there's also a ton of people that just want to access their games anywhere, and really think of Windows 365 like Xbox X Cloud and the disruption we're going to be driving. And although we're focused on commercial customers right now, this is going to go into consumer and is going to be huge.
Yeah, look, and I think it's really important concept and term is that cloud PC, because we're going to show you in the technical demo how easy that is to set up. But when we get to that discussion on the management piece, we are managing PCs, right? We're not managing infrastructure like we do with normal VDI solutions, and that's a big differentiator. And it is also an individual PC, right? It's not a multi-session.
It's personal. And I think when I'm talking to customers, I tend to try and challenge them. Think of it more like, we want to spin up trials. We want to get customers touching, feeling it, experiencing it. But I approach it, don't think of this as a traditional project. Think of this more as, I come in and go, hey, I've got this new Surface or whatever device. Go and spin it up and see if you think it, suits particular use cases. It's like saying, just because you have a desktop doesn't mean you will never have a laptop. And just because you have a laptop doesn't mean you never need a 2-in-1 or a tablet. So it's another device experience. It's not this whole monolithic VDI project you got to spin up. Think of it, it's another experience that you can give your users. In some cases, a physical device will be better. Some cases, a cloud PC will be better.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about some of that in the use cases section in a little while, and then it's seeing where it fits in and the power that it brings to the table is interesting, right? And the change dynamics, and I think that's probably again why Microsoft brought Windows 365 to market. It was to disrupt that VDI, so they offer something completely different, because it's, I think you mentioned is VDI but anti-VDI as well, because it's really about managing a PC.
There's lots of talk around people go, AVD or Windows 364. To me, it's a platform. And what is the right experience you're trying to drive for your end users? And think of it like a platform. But you manage everything, as you say, like a PC.
Yeah, it's really, really cool concept. Anything else you want to add to that, Andrew or George? You got any comments?
Look, the only thing that I was going to mention was, the whole fact of going to this cloud and sort of offloading the physical hardware, I guess, to a data center, right, that Microsoft owns and operates, is we've then got the capacity to turn around and ramp up and ramp down our VMs as well if needed. So, we might find that 2 gigs, 2 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM is not sufficient. For next month, we might want to crank that up. We can expand and scale out and scale back in as needed. And then you've got the whole concept of bringing your own images. It's highly secure. It's your SOE. It's all of that stuff, right? So I just want to emphasize on that point that I think that's where a lot of the organizations around the world are going. You look at Netflix, you mentioned the Xbox service, Andrew. Everything is going to these whole streaming services, and we're heavily reliant on the cloud. And like you mentioned, we don't need to buy beefy laptops anymore. We can just go get away with something plain and simple, something power efficient, and just stream the PC to our machines.
We need more power. Well, maybe let's jump into the next slide, John, and we'll talk use cases. Right, let's see what we're seeing, the uptake out there in the industry. Where is it being really sort of impactful? So we've talked about disrupting VDI, offering a slightly different solution, but where's it really landing? You want to give us some insights, Andrew, before we jump into a couple of examples of cubesys as well?
To me, this is really interesting because, I've been in Microsoft a million years. I was part of the original Office 365 team in those days. That was taken on by the large part of the mining resources industry, because at that time they're going through a boom. With Windows 365, what's really interesting is it's highly regulated customers. Our biggest single use of Windows 365 in Australia and New Zealand is actually the Australian federal government, because Windows 365 says to IRAP protected status, those desktops sitting inside Cloud PC are being managed by the federal government, and they are at essentially level 3 desktops, giving, so I'll talk more about. And then the second one is the large banks. FSI is a massive global market for us, both here in Australia, New Zealand, and overseas. And now, if we think of certain use cases, in the first 12 months, 40% of our global use cases were actually developers, where people were moving away, developers have multiple machines, moving developers to lightweight devices, but then having the power of a cloud PC, 32 gig 8 core or 16 gig 4 core, but having that to benefit of, there was one customer I worked with that would take almost 2 weeks to get a developer productive, and they were paying daily rate for that per developer, where now they can provision a cloud PC on day one, and then they have the benefits of things like, if for 75% developers want to work remote, they have a secure development environment. If the developer messes that up, they can use a snapshot to quickly get themselves productive again. The second big one is contractors, people coming into customers, they bring their own device, either BYD or managed by their, the consulting organization or whatever, they leverage that. And then a big one is actually external partners. So, this is federal government, the people delivering the services to the citizens are not the federal government itself, it's NGOs and third parties. So they've got thousands of cloud PCs being used for those to share government data securely. And then
that is that getting inside to applications and
yeah, so I mean, before they would
those.
hand out a second device, so the poor person delivering the service would have to have 2 devices, their own organization. Now they have a cloud PC that has access, I say, essentially level 3 IRAP protected level, giving information to the client or citizen information. And then in the financial services have historically been very much into the VDI world and terminal world. You know, some of our global customers have 80,000 terminals, you know, so they see Windows 365 as a way of moving from that legacy infrastructure into a world of where let's just manage this as a PC, but they still get the benefits of that secure virtual environment, which they can lock down and turn their devices essentially into terminals that they can then have a lot longer refresh cycle.
Yeah. I mean, the use case we've seen, George, and a couple of our clients is actually for overseas deployments as well. So we had a government department and an FSI where they have like overseas workers, and they need them to be on a secure device on something that they can rely on. That's obviously controlling a physical device the other side of the world is next door impossible. And to imagine the time it takes to get that up to speed with those people and get it shipped out to them and the right SOE and things on there, just really challenging and hard work.
I mean, look, in Australia, you don't even need to be overseas. I mean, I'm based in Brisbane. I think, you know, working with customers, the minute you send a physical device outside your organization's walls, especially if it's running in another organization, how do you do help desk on that? How do you manage that? Exactly. How do you get a device back?
How do you patch
don't even know if the person's still there. Whereas something like Cloud PC, someone leaves, you can just cut off access.
Well, that's been the difference we've seen, Andrew, is that with those clients, it's like gone from weeks and months to getting things organized for an end user to minutes, right? And then have that comfort of knowing that it's really secure, it's your SOE, it's patched and up to date, you're managing it, and then like you said, the asset cycle doesn't exist anymore. We just turn it off and remove that license. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So really impactful. Sorry, George.
The other thing that I think that we're seeing as well, I mean, you know, you mentioned developers, contractors, overseas users, but, you know, also people that are requiring admin access and the ability to, you know, like Andrew mentioned, is go back to a snapshot. You know, you got point in time restores, that kind of stuff. So we're sort of offloading some of those administrative tasks off to those users as well and giving them the flexibility to go and reset their own devices, to go and reboot it if it locks up, all of that power from the Windows 365 portal, right? So as an end user, you've got that power to power it on, power it off. And I think we haven't covered this as of yet, but, you know, for those of that are on the call that don't know, Windows 365 is flat rate costs, right? Fixed costs. So whether the machine's on or off, it is a flat cost. And we'll get into a little bit of that later on, but you know,
that's a good point, because a lot of the customers we've had, some big customers move to Windows 365 is they're, you know, AVD is a consumption-based service, but they've had cases where someone's tweaked something like premium storage or bigger processor, and they've suddenly had a huge spike. A lot of customers like that predictable cost per month. And second is, in the traditional model, you would say, okay, we'll limit people to 9 to 5. But a lot of customers I work with say that model's broken. We can't limit people to 9 to 5. So we have to have this on all the time, and then the bill goes through the roof. So they like that fact it's 24/7, always on, persistent machine. And that really works well in the hybrid work world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, we'll talk about some new features coming, like, you know, a couple of the stuff like Switch and that kind of thing. But, you know, it's essentially making it so much easier to, I guess, consolidate that cloud PC and your physical device sort of seamlessly inside the OS. Sorry, Paul.
No, I was going to. No, you're good. I was just seeing a couple of questions come in. That's the whole point of this discussion series, is get them in. And I can see Andrew, double multitasking there, answering on the fly, but let's make sure everybody's seen them. So one of the questions was about shared subscriptions, and is it just an individual? So currently it's individual, but I know there's things in the pipeline, right, Andrew, that will allow us to tackle use cases like frontline workers that have got shift work and situations like that. So do you want to give us a bit more detail on that, what's coming up?
So we're currently on the code name Shift Worker. So it's still individual cloud PCs, but think of it like a pool of shared subscriptions. So if you have a team of 30, but only 10 people are logging in at once, could be true shift work, vertical, shift 1, shift 2, shift 3, or part-timers. For every shared subscription, we'll create up to 3 cloud PCs. So out of that team of 30, you just need 10 shared subscriptions. And basically up to 10 people can log in at once. Now we'll handle things like overlap, blah, blah, blah. But it's a really interesting model because it still delivers the benefits of a persistent cloud PC that's personal to that user, because we know shared devices are a pain to use, a pain to manage. But it gives you the economic benefit of saying, okay, out of this team of 30, we know that the maximum concurrent usage is going to be 10, so only buy 10 subscriptions. That'll be coming very soon. And then around patching, which I was actually just going to...
I think I saw a question about that. We've got a demo and some more technical stuff coming up in a second, so maybe we'll just hold on to that question for a second. But yeah, there's a whole raft of changes and new features coming. Can we covered enough on use cases there, Andrew, George, or anything else you want to add? Any more questions out there? Because we might jump into that demo then.
Yeah, look, just before we move on, just real quick on the whole individual cloud PCs thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I'm pretty sure we can deploy 2 cloud PCs or even 3 cloud PCs for a single user, right? As long as they're part of a different provisioning policy, as long as they've got a different SKU assigned to them, right?
Yeah, we'll be fixing that shortly.
Yeah, so if there's a need for more than 1 cloud PC per user, you can also do that as well. But yeah, just to re-emphasize some of those use cases, right? So like always on computing, there are people out there that, yes, AVD is there as a solution and can cater, auto scale growth, all that kind of stuff. However, if someone needs their machine always on, let's say they run a long batch job or something like that, personal desktop where they need admin access or something like that, they can run it and leave it running knowing that machine is never going to power off. It's not going to go into standby, anything like that. It's always on, always available, ready for you to...
I mean, the one thing I would say is we're positioning AVD as there are certain things that, just to get this out, sort of things like application streaming, server OS, and legacy is AVD every day.
Yeah.
Windows 365 persistent, always on cloud PC, that actually follows the principle of this. You do not say, hey, you can only use this 9 to 5, or we're going to shut it down after hours. No, it follows the principle of a physical device.
Yeah.
The grace that we do, a lot of customers go down the road of multi-session in AVD, but when we talk to customers, when we ask them, if we took the price off the table, would you do multi-session? And vast majority say no, because it's not a great experience. Hence why we're bringing out Shift Worker and other solutions to help
that's really interesting.
normalize on that.
Really
I
interesting.
think that's very true. Multi-session is really about economics, right?
And also, it's a complex solution to it's a complex solution to do. So
Andrew, it also comes down to these applications, right? I've come across multiple applications that just don't like multi-session. You can't run the same executable multiple times and that kind of stuff. So it really is hit or miss. I mean, the majority of the time it's fine, but you do get those unique ones.
To be a bit like a broken record, our vision is to meet customers where they are. So if you're using config manager, or as I call it, SSAM today, use that. Manage cloud PCs using that. If you're moving modern and using Intune, use that. But your applications for physical and Windows 365 stay exactly the same. It's one app, one package gets delivered to both, as opposed to having to repackage or move apps somewhere else. So it's that's one of our key goals.
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue, guys, into, if you're ready, George, we can run through our demo, because I'm super keen for people to see how easy this is, and it really is phenomenally fast, because a lot of the infrastructure piece is taken away and managed by Microsoft, right? And then after the demo, we'll talk about how we can go about managing that cloud PC, and Andrew's just alluded to that, and some of the impact and benefits that has on your business. So let's run through the demo, George, and show people how quick and easy it is to set up.
So this is just a quick recording. I mean, I did this last night about 8:30. I just wanted to go through and show how easy it is to assign a license. Hang on, I'll just pause for a sec. Basically, what I'm going to do is go through and assign a Windows 365 license or a SKU to a group or a user. And then from there, once that user's got access to that, over in the Intune portal, I'll show you how to create a provisioning policy, set up a network connection, and I'm going to do a hybrid Azure AD join. So I'm basically going to domain join this cloud PC to my my on-prem Active Directory. So I'll just start this again. So here I am in my Azure portal. If I go to Azure Active Directory and we look at licenses, I've only got the one license here. It is a enterprise Windows 365 SKU. So it's 2 CPU, 4 gig of RAM, 128 gig hard drive. It's assigned to Tony Stark, and it's assigned via the Windows 365 users group. So if I actually go into that group and I search for it, we can see that obviously Tony Stark is a member of it. But if I had multiple users in here, so I had 10 users in there and I had 10 licenses assigned, then that's how those users would get a cloud PC provisioned automatically. So the service constantly checks that group and sees, is there someone in there? Is there a new person? Yes. Do they match the provisioning policy? I'm going to spin up a new VM for them. Here I am over in the Intune portal. So we've got the Windows 365 Blade. I'm just going to go back a sec. There are a couple of different options here. So you've got your overview, sort of your health status, your health checks, that kind of stuff. All of your cloud PCs that have been provisioned. You've got your provisioning policies, custom images, network connections, and user settings. So what this user settings section is, so I've already got one here, but it's basically talking about, do we want to give our users local admin access? Do we want our users to initiate a restore service? So do they want to go back in time in a snapshot? We can do that. We can offload that capability to the users, and basically from this screen here, we can select the amount of, the frequency of those snapshots. I think the lowest we can go down to is 4 hours. Yeah, 4 hours. So you can select how often it's going to be creating those snapshots in the background. And then you can assign this to a different group if needed. You can have multiple groups and sort of structure out your hierarchy the way you need it. So that's user settings. The next section is going to be talking about the provisioning, the network setup. This keeps stopping. So Azure network connection. You got two options, Azure AD join and hybrid Azure AD join. For this demo, I'm going to do hybrid. So we're going to domain join and then sync up that computer object to Azure. With this here, you obviously need a VNet and a line of sight to your domain controllers. I'm just running a domain controller in Azure. That way I've just got line of sight to it directly, but otherwise, express route, VPN connectivity, something like that. Go ahead, create the connection, give it the domain that you want to join. Give it a service account that can go in and has access to domain join computers, and optionally give it the OU path. And this is sort of like a service account that's going to run in the background each time a VM is provisioned. And it's just telling you that these are the following permissions that are going to be granted to the service. So this will go off and run its checks. And what this does is it proactively, constantly keeps checking the network in the background to make sure that, hey, it's still got line of sight. Nothing's changed in the background. There's not going to be no issues, in a month's time, because it's continuously checking it to ensure that, we don't have any issues. So we'll see that in a second once it finishes. This probably takes about half an hour, 20 minutes to run, but I just skipped it in the video here. But yeah, you can see sort of some of the steps that it does to do those checks. The other thing here is custom images. So if we've already got an image in the compute image gallery, we can import that. So we can use our own SOE if we've already got one. If not, we can just use a Microsoft one. And then we've got provisioning policies. Now, your provisioning policies are essentially what we're going to do, what image we're going to use, what configuration we're going to use, and what we're doing with these cloud machines. So here, I'm just going to create a provisioning policy for hybrid join. I'm going to select that network that I created earlier. So we're going to do a hybrid Azure or a domain join to that network. Here is where you select your image. I'm just going to choose a gallery image because I don't have any custom images here. Windows 10, Windows 11, they do come with optimizations as well in Windows Microsoft 365 apps. Choose your language settings, and then optionally, if you want to use things like Windows Auto Patch, you'd have to set that up prior, but you can definitely use Windows Auto Patch to patch your machines for you, or you can use existing services, SCCM, Intune, etc. Go ahead and deploy that provisioning policy to a group of users that has the license assigned, and then once you hit create, the service in the background is going to take all of those configs and determine what needs to be done. How many VMs do I need to provision? How many users are in the group? How many licenses do I have? So there it is there. It's already started, kicked off the provisioning status. Probably takes about half an hour. So there it is there. So we've got CPC, Tony's -random character. We can see we've got one PC. And now if I go to the windows365.microsoft.com web portal, and you can also use the AVD client if you like. It's the same thing. There's my cloud PC there, so we can see sort of what it's been provisioned at. And then you can open it in the browser by HTML5, or you can open it via the AVD client. The AVD client gives you the best features, capabilities, that kind of stuff. So, USB redirection. I think you can do it also through the HTML5 client, but I prefer using the full-blown client here. I'll do my 2FA. I'll log into the cloud PC, and we're done. And I think by default, this uses RDP, short path for public networks. So you get that really quick, low latency connection to your cloud PC. So I'll just drag the window over.
Things worth probably emphasizing there, George, as you're spinning it up. And I think a couple of areas I think are really important are the network piece, right? So we get to choose where in the network they connect through, using the Azure Network Path, so we can choose what part of your network these PCs have access to. That can be really powerful, particularly if you think about having a setup, particularly for I don't know, contractors or something. We can define that network and control that network. And that network also means that we get access to all our management tools, right? And that's the second point, is these you don't have to change everything you're doing today. You reuse what you've got today, and you can develop and enhance that, of course, over time, but you can use what you've got today to manage these PCs, right?
Yeah.
And that, sorry, Andrew, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say was that, that for when you say, I mean, most customers have one provisioning policy. It's actually the subscription that defines what size of cloud PC you get. And once you define that provisioning policy, the act of giving a user a subscription balance will kick off that. So your user, a lot of customers might start in HR, let's say an offshore developer, starts in HR, gets put to AD, gets put to Azure AD, and then a license along with whatever other Microsoft 365 license they get, kicks off a cloud PC. The fastest provision we had so far is 11,000 in one day. So it's not a serial provisioning like 20 minutes. It's actually hyper-threaded. We've seen customers do 1,200 in 4 hours in Australia. So, I mean, you can just think how long it would take you to that 11,000 to deliver 11,000 physical devices or build a VDI infrastructure. Second thing is network. You can deploy different networks. So you can have some bring your own, express route. We'll create the virtual NIC in your express route. Then, as you mentioned, you have total control. We are also nudging very friendly customers down the Microsoft network, because that sort of introduces a concept here. Microsoft, every single employee's device is Azure AD joined, and we have a VPN client on it. So if I'm sitting at home or off network, I use the VPN client to go back on. Think of it like an XNet model. Using that with Windows 365, first of all, we don't have any network charges. Two, you get about 1.5 2 gigabytes per second up and down once you're in your cloud PC. And third, it's a very simple, very easy deploy architecture that means you're maximizing the value of having a SaaS service, because the minute you introduce something you as a customer manage, and there's something we manage, that's where added complexity comes in, because you may change something on your side that has an adverse effect on ours. So we do increasingly talk to customers about Azure AD join, use the Microsoft network, think of it like an extranet device. And if those users need back on-prem, use a cloud gateway or VPN client.
Yeah.
Super simple, super easy to deploy.
Yeah. I think
flexibility
with
is great though, isn't it? That we can do both. If we need that legacy connectivity back, if we need to do that for our business or to get our as past cybersecurity or whatever it might be, it's there, right? And then if we can go modern, we can go modern. We could even probably do some of both, right? So
you can. I mean, that's a bit. You can start simple.
And see a healthy transition, right?
You can start simple and then add complexity as needed.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to call out real quick. So just for everyone, so that they're aware, this is not running in Azure, right? So we're not going to see the VMs as we traditionally see VMs. It runs in I think it's a Microsoft portal, right? So the only thing that we're going to see here, if we do like a hybrid join, is the NIC or the network card injected in the VNet. We're not going to see anything else. So everything else is sort of offloaded off to Microsoft. We don't really manage, the disk or the VM object. We just see the network card. So just in case anyone's scratching their head.
That was one of the questions I think in the chat was, where does this sit? And it's very clearly this sits in Microsoft manage everything up to the operating system, right? And we have a couple of things we do. We control that network piece, and then we manage the operating system, right? And that means we use Intune or we use SCCM, and we use our existing config. One of the things I probably should have mentioned as well during your demo, George, you had 2FA right in there, right? Very important. I think it's true with AVD and Windows 365. We leverage what we've already deployed for our Office 365 environment or whatever it might be in the Microsoft infrastructure, right? So our conditional access, our 2FA, all that things is in AAD, and you just reuse it, right? For that, so we're not having to reinvent the wheel and all that front end security piece, right?
Just to really quick finish off the demo. So obviously it's been domain joined. We can see that there. And then just to confirm that we are running the SKU that I actually purchased. So 2 cores, 4 gig RAM, 128 gig hard drive. So that's pretty much it. And that's always on, always available. Use it to do what you want. So that's the demo.
Let's jump to the next section, Joseph, and we're going to talk. I think we've talked about some of this stuff, Joe. I think we're going to talk about the management piece. We've already been doing that, but there is a couple of different SKUs there as well, right?
Yes, there is.
Just describe them.
Yep. So there's a whole different heap of SKUs here. Here are some of the ones that you can get today. I'm not sure what's in the pipeline, whether there's going to be more, whether there's going to be stuff with, like a GPU, for example, that kind of thing. But, this is some of the options that you have there. So just to give you an example, a 4-core CPU can range anywhere between $113 to $175 per user. That's sort of at like cost rate. Then you've got, upwards of, I think like the absolute top one there, Andrew, that 8 CPU, 128 gig of RAM, 32 gigs of RAM, like just under $300 or something like that to leave it running 24/7, which if you were to try and find the exact same one in Azure and like run it in AVD, it's not going to be as cheap as
So I mean, we start around I can't remember the exact figure, but for enterprise,
it starts about $30 or something like that. I think
for the 4-core, and I think it goes up to 275. We do have some tiered around a few 50. 500 and 2000, we have quite significant discounting available around there. But the important thing is it's not an exact match. For instance, the 2-core 8 gig 128 is actually the largest used by number in Australia and New Zealand. And I have a very CTO of a very large customer who swears that his 2-core 8 gig cloud PC actually runs things like Teams a lot better in his physical device, which is 16 gig. And a lot of that comes down to the fact you don't have thermal throttling, power management, battery management on this, because it's actually server grade. Plus you have the super fast network. They're running the Microsoft network, so they get about 1.5 to 2 gigabytes per second up and down. And that cloud PC is going to be sitting right next to their Microsoft 365 and Azure stuff sitting in our data center. So and the benefits is, at the end of the day, these are subscriptions. As I think you mentioned earlier on, George, you can flip someone from a 2-core to an 8 to a 4-core, or flip them down if they're on a 4-core 16 gig and endpoint analytics and Intune is saying, hey, this person's not really using it, you can downsize them.
Yeah. The other thing as well that I came across was I had a customer that wanted to do that right flip, and even if you make the wrong choice and you accidentally, you know, unassign licenses or whatever, the machines themselves, they go into a grace period. So you've got, I think, 30 days from memory, where it sort of sits in this grace period, and you've got the option to recover that VM. So even if, is it 7 days? 7 days. There you go. Sorry. So you've got 7 days to go back and recover that VM and bring it back to life, reassign it to the user and give them access. So yeah, there is a grace period. You're not gonna, you know, don't think if you remove a user from a group, it's gonna, you know, automatically delete the VM. It'll sit there in this sort of grace period. Cool. So
let's talk about new features in the future. All right. So what's coming in the pipeline? There's a few things that are out there in the public, which George has put together on this slide. But then I wonder if I might envision a bit more. So let's talk through these ones and talk about why they're coming and what power they're going to bring to the cloud PC.
Yeah, look, I can jump into these ones. So Windows 365 boot, I mean, as it says there, will allow specialized devices to go from powering on to logging directly to your cloud PC. So you can buy like a physical hardware, right? Turn on Windows 365 boot, and it'll just automatically boot into that cloud PC when you turn the thing on. So it sort of will, I guess, bypass your local OS. I mean, you'd still have the ability to sort of switch it around and whatnot, but that's what Windows 365 boot is. Then you've got Windows 365 switch, which is basically just fast user desktop switching. So like, you know, essentially it's like alt tabbing, I would say, Andrew, right? From your local desktop.
I'll go into a couple of the, you know, first of all, the boot, this is actually a boot device here. Okay. So there's a couple of scenarios there. One, have a powerful cloud PC, but super lightweight, super long battery life local machine. And it can be any device that supports Windows 11. The other scenario is where with the new shift worker, or whatever we're going to call it, coming out, and we make an announcement around Easter, that this can be defined as a shared device. So I come up, log in to this device, use the local Windows Hello or, you know, username PIN or a FIDO key. I log into my cloud PC, I go off shift, Bob walks up, logs in, goes to his cloud PC, and then Jane comes in, goes to there. So it's a great way of offering shared experiences, but at the same time they're individual. And that's actually, we're planning to bring that, you know, there should be a preview very shortly and then GA very quickly after that. So that's really where we start to break down that barrier between what's the compute power and the physical device. Second thing, switch. That's where we integrate into the desktop switcher. So a lot of people traditionally VDI, they go into their desktop and think, how the hell do I get back? Where am I? So once you're in Windows 365, you go to a desktop switcher and you'll actually see your local desktop and you can easily go between them. Yeah. Seems small, but it's taking a lot of effort.
Yeah. It'll make things more seamless, I guess, across the entire desktop experience. Windows 365 app will be included in a future Windows 11 release available for Windows. So the Windows 365 app, I think that's out today from memory.
It's been out for a few weeks. It's for 10 or 11.
Yeah.
What it really offers is single sign-in. Two things. One, you don't need a subscription URL or some code. You sign in using your credentials. It will go off and find your cloud PCs. Plus, it brings benefits like restart, restore, troubleshooter, and stuff to the local, to the rich app, and gives up to support for 16 monitors plus offloads AV to local machine. Interesting enough, a couple of weeks ago, we announced that the Windows 365 app is included in every single LG 23 TV going forward, alongside things like Apple TV and Netflix. So you think of that disruption of, not everyone's going to want an 85-inch 8K monitor, you know, for their home, but that disruption of Xbox, we've got some really interesting stuff with some really interesting OEMs coming up, and that's our LG is the first example of that.
That's really interesting, Andrew, because the sort of use case I see for that is if I have a TV in a boardroom that's got the app, I don't need to bring my laptop anymore. I can just log into a cloud PC and run presentations or whatever straight off that.
So that shows you the sort of disruption we're sort of driving. And then offline, so the first, you know, apps here, boot will soon be here. Switch will be a bit further off because touching that taskbar in Windows is like needs so much Q&A, so many teams. You know, it's one with Crown Jewels of Microsoft. You've got to be careful there. So that'll take a wee bit longer, but still around the middle of the year, we should be able to start testing it. Offline is a bit of a longer proposition, because
offline's the one I'm looking forward to, because I think
so it's like the holy grail of VDI, you know, the ability to be able to go offline. And you know, there's one scenario where you might have a device and you know, you go on a plane or you're somewhere remote and you want to compute. But there's a second scenario we're working on in certain industries, and this ties in with our secure PC initiative, of where you may want to take in certain environments, healthcare or maybe defense, where you actually want to take a Windows environment that's secondary to your PC offline and then enter data, patient information, citizen or sensitive information, and have a secure bubble running on that physical device that's fully isolated from it. So offline is really going to be interesting from a point of view of really extending your cloud, your physical into the cloud, but also introduce some really interesting capabilities around secure PC and how we really, you know, for highly sensitive workloads, lift the game around security.
Because I know we're running over time, and that always happens in our discussion series, and I usually get into trouble for that. But so we might just wrap up there. We're more than happy to take more questions, guys, and please reach out to us. And I know Andrew will be the same. But just before I thank Andrew for joining us, I did notice quite a few of our attendees there are AVD people and have got Nerdio in place. You might be interested to know that Nerdio also manages Windows 365, helps you with license assignment and some automation around that, helps you with that custom image management and a bunch of sort of bells and whistles that you would come to expect from Nerdio and smart automation in there. So just for a couple of you that might be looking at hybrid and doing some of both, that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, thank you, Andrew. Lots of great insight there from
well, thanks for inviting me. It's
Windows 365.
Great to tell the story and the vision.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be more questions, guys. Of course, we'll be in touch. The presentation pack and the video always come out, and you can always reach out to us for more questions. So thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you found that insightful and useful for your future planning and where you go with VDI.